It's time for today's travel and cruise industry news. With the latest from travel and cruises around the world, here's your host, Chillie Falls.
Good morning. Welcome to Travel and Cruise Industry News. And we had one of my guests for the morning popped in a couple minutes before she couldn't hear me. And it was all on my end, so I'm not sure what happened. So I had to switch around, change cameras, change microphones, do all that in about 2 minutes time. Anyway, welcome to Travel and Cruise Industry News. Wow, a little out of breath here. All right, this is going to end up being maybe one of my most important shows of the year. Not only is my guest this morning an extraordinarily timely subject to talk about, she's also one of my favorite guests. So anyway, we got several other things that we're going to discuss after I talk with Kristy. Carnival Celebration christened, the Diamond Princess returns, Disney Fantasy assists Coast Guard and rescue operation, MSC Seascape on its transatlantic to pick me up down there in Miami. Yeah. Travel to Cuba. How about that as a subject this morning? I'm excited about the information that came from Hot Air Tom. One quick note, folks. I've talked about the August cruise I did on Norwegian Sky as the Hot Air Tom cruise. Well, there's going to be a whole new definition to that phrase. I'm not going to talk about it today because we got too much to do. However, the whole concept of Hot Air Tom cruise, I promise you, for almost a month, I'm going to take Cindy's place and I'm going to be the one going around the ship going, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill him. I'm going to do exactly like Cindy does. We'll talk about that another day. All right. With no further ado, I'm going to bring in my guest this morning. Wow, she is. There's so much you can say about Kristy. She's an entrepreneur. She's a travel agent. She's a disabilities advocate. She's a featured speaker. She owns and operates Incredible Memories Travel. She's hooked up with the folks over at Will the World, and they're doing an all-accessible cruise and trip to Alaska for 2023. We've talked about that on this channel before. But anyway, with no further ado, here's my guest, Kristy Durso. Welcome back to Chillie Chats.
Hi, Chillie. Thank you again for having me, and thank you for such kind words. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna pretend a minute this morning. I'm going to end up asking you more than just the questions that I told you because I can't go without asking you about a couple other things. But anyway, we'll get to that in a minute.
All right.
This is an extremely important topic for this week because so many people are going to be flying. I walk up to a ticket booth at an airport. I not walk up, I roll up. Let's say that I'm in a wheelchair. And I check in, and the ticket agent says, "Oh, we have to check the wheelchair with the luggage." What do you respond, and why, and what's your backup to do that?
My response is, first of all, this would apply to the very slimlined power chairs that are very, very lightweight, depending on their dimensions. Some of them would be able to do this. This applies to manual chairs primarily, but by law, according to the Air Carrier Act, a manual wheelchair can be stowed in the cabin. It is first come, first serve for that closet up front, but that closet is actually not designed for the luggage of the flight attendants or anybody else. That closet is designated as wheelchair space. And as long as your wheelchair can either collapse and fit in it or come apart and fit in it, that closet is for you. Now, if the airline has 100 seats or more and does not have a chair on the plane, And if the plane is fully booked, that means that by law, somebody can be bumped from that flight so that your chair can go into the plane itself. So there are 3 ways that I can get my chair on the plane. The first is in that closet. That's my preferred thing. It's the easiest. But if it doesn't fit in the closet, then we try the overhead bin. And then again, if they have 100 passenger seats or more, then we'll strap it into a seat. So.
Okay. Is there anything a scooter user can do?
If it's one, there are a few lightweight scooters. So if that scooter is small enough to collapse and fit into those spaces, then they can fit into those spaces as well. But it has to be able to break down and fit into those dimensions. So the law is the mobility device can go into the cabin if it fits and the pilot deems it safe.
Okay. My lightweight scooter that I use here at home, that I can lift in and out of my car, it can collapse down. I could do that on a plane. But like my scooters that I rent from Scootaround for my cruises,
those are too big.
They're too big, even though the new ones come apart into 5 pieces.
Right.
But that would then be 5 things to deal with, not 1.
Right. So. Well, it doesn't matter. You break it down. I've had my chair in various places. Sometimes the wheels go behind the last row. Sometimes they go in the overhead, then my smart drive. And anything that you put in the overhead that is medical equipment doesn't count towards your baggage allotment, and it has to be allowed in there because it is medical equipment and they need to find a space for it in the cabin if it fits.
Yeah, it's just like they have to let me have my portable oxygen unit.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Are they doing any better with taking care of wheelchairs and scooters that have to go in the luggage compartments?
Well, you'll hear mixed reviews on that. In my experience and what I have seen, I'm still seeing wheelchairs get damaged. I'm still hearing about things being broken. Now, I will say the response is good. If something does break, as long as you get that claim in there before you leave the airport, then the response has been fantastic. But it still has to go up that conveyor belt to get into the aircraft, which is a lot of times where the problem initiates, because if it's not balanced right on there, and this is especially when you're talking about some of those bigger things, it may not be balanced quite right, so then it falls off, or when it gets in there, they don't tie them down. There's no way to secure it once in that cargo area. And that's where a lot of the breaks do happen, is when we have it get in there and it's not strapped down. I'm pretty sure that's why before, if my chair was in the cargo, that's where it ends up getting broken. One time I had a bolt on my chair completely sheared off. I have no idea how they did that to my foot plate. So it's been damaged 6 times in the last year on times that I couldn't fit it into the cabin. So I can't, as much as I'd love to say yes, they're doing a great job now, I can't say it.
All right. Well, my next question, which is over and above the main subject for today, I has to do. In Virginia, it was 21 degrees this morning, folks. I went out for a nice brisk walk. No, I didn't. I'm freezing to death. I need to get on a boat again soon. Well, it just happens that ties in to my next question, because you have been doing some training for Holland America, and I'm going to get on a Holland America boat here in a week.
Excellent.
Tell me about your Holland America experience.
Well, I've been on 4 Holland America cruises this year. So 2 times to Alaska, 1 time in the Caribbean, and 1 time on the California side of Mexico. So We've gone several times, and each time I've been able to interact with them, and we've talked about ways to make it easier to accommodate families who have disabilities. So it's been really, really good. And we've been working on the excursion side and talking about how to better accommodate those travelers with their excursions. And I'm so excited about the partnership with Will the World. So it's official now that Holland America and Will the World have a partnership for their Alaska trip. So it's very, very exciting. We've got some wonderful accessible excursions there, and we're going to continue working on building out some more accessible excursions in other areas as well. So that's a lot of fun, really exciting things there. The big issue for me is still that tendering and still just the rest of the excursions. I really try to focus when I have somebody who has a mobility disability, try to get them on cruises that don't have any tendering at all, because that's the easiest. But then we do need to talk about tendering because it can be complicated and it's a little bit harder. For example, when I was on the cruise this past week, we had 2 tender ports. One of them was Puerto Vallarta, the other was Cabo, and Cabo is always a tender. Puerto Vallarta was listed at first as a dock location, but it ended up changing to a tender location. And when I got on the ship, they said that they would not be able to accommodate me on the tender at all. And I kind of thought at first, well, do I fight this? Do I stay on board? And I ended up that first day deciding to stay on board so that I could kind of document what there was to do if we are not able to get ashore. And so we played pickleball, we did the pool, we did the spa. That was fun. But I kept getting pictures from other people showing that they lifted wheelchairs onto the tender, so which they had told me they would not do. So that was a real curiosity for me. So then when we got to Puerto Vallarta, I went ahead and went down there, and it was a non-issue. They brought me down the elevator to be level at the loading station, and then they just picked up my chair and loaded it right on. So it was possible to tender, at least in a manual wheelchair.
Right. Now, I've not ever tendered at Puerto Vallarta. I've always landed on the dock there.
Yeah.
So I'm not that familiar with that one. What I've found with tenders is most tender boats are 2 levels. And where you get on the tender from the cruise ship, if that matches the dock level to get off on the dock, you're okay. Now, I'm a little different than you. I can, with a little bit of nerves, go up the gangplank and onto the tender on my little scooter.
Right.
But it's got to be the same level. If it's a different level, then you have to go up and down the stairs. Then that eliminates me totally.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And if you have the ability to take steps, it's a non-issue. Like if you can take 2 to 3 steps, then you're fine. But it's people like me who aren't able to take steps when tendering that it becomes a bigger issue because they don't want the liability. They don't want to take the risk there. So, but there are a few ships where they're doing better, where they have better equipment and they're able to make that tender easier.
Yeah. Now I'm finding a completely mixed bag. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Exactly.
One of the areas that needs more work than others are the private islands that you have to tender to, because that's always the different level.
Absolutely.
I've not seen a tender at a private island that I could get to.
Yeah, that is tricky. I did tender on Holland America to their private island. I was able to tender, but it was difficult, and I think we did come off on an area where it had steps, and they had to carry my chair down, which again, not that difficult with a manual wheelchair that's a ton, but
carrying you in a manual chair is a little different than carrying my big fat on a scooter. I mean, it would take a crane. A couple guys can pick you up. That's fine.
Right. It's not going to work for everybody. So it depends on the equipment. It depends on the total weight. There's a lot that has to go into it in order to make that safe or even possible. So that's kind of the big issue. And then of course, once you get to the private island, there's the issue. Most of them now do have the beach wheelchairs, which is fabulous. But things that they forget about, making sure there's a table that isn't in the sand, making sure that there are things that I can get to participate in, even though they have the beach wheelchairs. Those things are very, very difficult to push. So if I'm on a girls' trip and there's not somebody with a decent amount of strength to push that beach wheelchair, then it doesn't matter that they have the beach wheelchair.
Or if you're like me and travel solo,
That too.
that's a whole another can of worms.
Right.
All right. Because I promised I would not tie you up all morning today, I have to ask you one quick story to relate how you turned what would be just an absolute horrifying situation into something hysterically funny. Please tell us about your bus trip from, it was in San Diego
Yeah.
to
It was
the bus trip.
Anaheim to San Diego. So I had the distinct pleasure of joining Ms. Wheelchair America 2022 in Disneyland for a few days, which was an absolute blast. And we were one of the first people to find out about the new wheelchair dolls on the Small World attraction, which we were super excited about. But then I had to get to San Diego to depart for my cruise. And I wanted to take the train, but there were no more train tickets, at least not for somebody in a wheelchair, that were at a decent hour. So I thought, okay, well, it's not that long of a ride. I'll go ahead and take the bus. So I went online, I purchased my bus ticket, marked that I was a wheelchair user and that I would stay in my wheelchair on the bus. And I showed up at the bus station ready to go. And the bus driver pulls in and he starts loading everybody else. And then he comes up to me and goes, "You're not on this bus." And I said, "Yeah, I am." And he goes, "You're not on my list." And I said, "Well, here's my bus ticket." And I showed him my phone where it showed my ticket with the wheelchair. And he goes, "They didn't tell me to expect a wheelchair." I said, "Well, I'm here and I'm getting on this bus." And he said, "Well, I don't have room for you. We can't, there's no space for your chair." And kind of looked at him and I said, well, we're going to have to figure this out because I'm getting on this bus one way or another. So in the end, what we did, because I know that I have decent arm strength, he didn't move the seats because there were too many people on the bus to do that. And so all the seats stayed where they were, including the row right in front of the lift. He put me on the lift and we went up. And keep in mind, everyone, I'm wearing a dress, which kind of plays into the story. I love wearing dresses. They're so much easier until moments like this. So I get up on the lift and the ramp to connect the lift to the bus can't go down because the seats are in the way. And so the bus driver is kind of flipping out. He's like, "I don't know what to do. I don't know how we're going to do this. What are we doing here?" And I said, It's fine. I'll just crawl over." So I wheeled up as close as I could to the ramp. So it comes about up to my knees, pull my legs over, and I'm sitting there talking to the people on the bus. There are only guys in the back of the bus. It's only guys. So I'm like, I need somebody to hold my stuff. And now I'm so sorry, guys. I'm going to flash you here. So please just, be polite. Turn away. And I pulled myself up and out and into the seat of the bus. And the bus driver was just kind of looking at me with this expression of, "I can't believe this just happened." But I made it into the seat and made it all the way to San Diego. And I just have to say, I'm really, really glad I was wearing one of my favorite pairs of underwear.
I knew the story and I'm still laughing until I got tears in my eyes. Oh, that's just terrific. Kristy, thank you so much for giving us some advice for flying this week. For those of us that are flying, I'm still driving to cruises. I don't want to get on airplanes again. I'm going to have to because I'm going to Europe now. So that's I can make it one way, but I can't make it the other way. So.
Well,
anyway,
thank you for having me again. It's always a pleasure.
And have a wonderful holiday.
Thank you.
I hope to talk to you real soon.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, Kristy.
I regularly post videos on all facets of the travel and cruise industry. So if you'd like to keep up with the latest in cruise ships, ports of call, cruises themselves, Chillie Chats, and travel and cruise industry news, just hit the little subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner. Hit the bell notification so you'll be notified when a new video is up or we go live. This video was produced by Chillie's Cruises.